This is Melinda Barlow, CZT, Certified Zentangle Teacher, and this is our live Zoom class. And today we're working on the template Bright, and we're doing 4 tangles, and I'm going to repeat them now, and then I will, if you don't have them listed, if you don't have the handout, it's a ruckus. And if anyone's curious, this is Sakura backwards, and Molly Hollybot did that one, and I thought that was a clever name, that it would be, you know, she just came up, they come up with non-real names for things. And Nicole Dyer, we have 3 of hers. This is starfish ribbon, starfish flower. I'm going to get it so you can see the title. And starfish double barrel. And I believe there is another starfish one, but I don't remember. Those are just the ones we're doing today. And this is starfish ribbon. And I'm going to move this one underneath so it's not so distracting. And we're going to start out on a tile just because it's nice to get yourself going a little bit. And this is the starfish flower. This one right here. And I love when Nicole does one, she always adds these little, look like eyes that are poking out. For me, they look like little eyeballs. And so I had to do those too because they were fun. So we're gonna get a tile. And I'm going to be using a 01 black micron 01 and a pencil. So we're going to start out, and I am going to put a border because I really think that that's one of the best ways. Somebody on here will text me, said, can beginners do this? And that's why I'm starting out with this one, because I think we have a few beginners. If you are a beginner tangler, hit your space bar and announce that you're a beginner.
I'm a beginner.
Good. And who was that? I didn't.
Dawn McFall.
Okay, Dawn. Thank you. Yeah, we've talked. Good. Well, so we will go with strictly a beginner type tangle right here with this one, so that you will feel that kind of flow, but really they're all essentially beginner tangles because it's 3 strokes of the pen or less. And so I'm going to just put a dot in the corner with my pencil. And mine's about 1/4 of an inch away from my edge of my paper, but it can, you know, it can be in further, it can be out, and then we'll draw a border. And Maureen is a total beginner, so it's always fun to get people who have never done Zentangle, and then when they complete something, they are usually in awe about what they did. And we have Charla has a niece that's starting today. That's great. So now we have our border. And the reason we do this is because it gives us a little palette and some borders, because a lot of times you'll look at a big piece of paper or a canvas if you're an artist and you think, I don't even know where to start. And so with Zentangle, it's pared down to a smaller piece of paper, and it takes away some of that fear. And so that's why we do the little tiles, and a lot of times we will put a string in here that will divide it up even smaller. But I'm not going to put a string in because I'm going to do starfish flower in the whole area. We're just going to repeat it a couple of times. So we'll take our pen, and our first stroke is going to be just a line it's kind of got a little bit of a curve to it, just a tiny bit, and we're going to make the letter X. so that it crosses, but we don't want it to be completely, so it's kind of like you have thirds, because we're going to divide this so we have 6 spaces. But if one's a little wider than the others, don't worry about it, because I did one of mine ended up having more sections than just the 6 sections. I think it ended up with 8. And it really won't matter if it ends up with 8 sections or 6 sections. It just won't make much difference at all. And then we're going to come to one of these little parts that stick out, and we're going to just round it and come back down to the center. So it kind of rounds off the top and then draw right down to that center. And you can see I rotate my tile so that I can plant my hand, the kind of the fatty part of my hand, on my table. And that helps with if you have a shaky hand. So if you plant that and then rotate your tile, you'll get a little smoother stroke. So I went all the way around with these little rounded petals. And now I'm just going to come back and I'm going to echo that. And this time, instead of going around the rest, I am going to just echo this, stepping down just ever so slightly so that I fill up that space. So you can see I just filled up this little space, and I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to come back here and do it again. That one I had to kind of sneak that last one in, but you just do until that space is filled up. Now, as I was looking at Nicole's step outs, she points these little arrows that say go this way and then go this way. I found if I went all the way around the same direction, it turned out well for me. And I like how the pen kind of builds up with ink in that little center. So that's fine with me if it builds up. Matter of fact, that's part of this design. And I always draw pulling my pen toward me, because I think you get a better control of your pen when you pull it towards you. When I push the pen away from me, I don't seem to have as much control. So now we have it all the way around, and this one has just a tiny little space right here. I'm going to rotate over to one that has a little bit more space. I really step down here. So find one of those little sections that have quite a bit of space right here, and we're going to draw a line that comes out. So I started right up here at the top of that petal, and I drew a line that came out. And then I'm going to aura on the inside so you can see what look you get. That's what we want, that kind of look that looks like it has a hollow edge. I'm going to rotate it, come from the top of there, and pull it out. The bigger that little space is, it can be small or it can be larger. I like mine as big as I think I can handle it, because then there's another tangle out there that has this same kind of, and I'm trying to remember the name of, but I won't remember it. But this same kind of step that makes it look like where these petals are coming out of the inside of that one. I'm going to rotate it again.
What if you don't have a big enough space in between the parts in your petals?
I'll show you what you do, okay? Just one, because I'm coming to one right there that I don't have much space.
Okay.
And I love it when people ask questions like that. Emily, thanks. That was a great question. So there's not very much space here. So I'm going to just draw a little line over, and then this one will have a little tiny bit of space. And if there's really not much, I will just ink that all the way in and make it have so that it's all the way inked in, and then do a little line over the top of it, just to kind of give it the illusion that I left a space. See, there's one right here, and so I'm going to ink it all in, and then I'm just going to aura the top of it. So it just looked like it had a space. And I'm wondering right now, because with the practice of Zentangle, when we say, oh, I made a mistake, and we think, how can I fix that? Because there are really no mistakes, only opportunities. As I look at Nicole's step outs of this, these little eye-like things, I'm wondering if that was where she saw a misstroke and that she just added that to it. That could be it. We're going to add another one so we have time to practice this. So just in any space on your tile, and I'm going to really make that one curved, and it comes down and it's going to touch in to there because it's going to look like it hollybaws underneath. And for those that are new, hollybaw is a term that Molly Hollybaugh, Maria's daughter, came up with. And they called it hollybaugh because it means draw behind. And I'm just going to do, so there's my little petals. And I'm going to take and draw my first initial little rounds. Rotating my tile as I draw. And now I'm just going to step down. And if I want a bigger spot there, I really step down. So the next time, if you didn't get a big spot, when you do your aura or echo, just really step it down. And then you'll get a bigger spot there. And that's the beauty of Zentangle. If you don't like it the first time you draw it, you think, what can I do to change that a little bit, make it more what I want it to look like. And I'm coming to my border. I can see my pencil border. So I'm not going to cross over my border. So I went right down along that border of my pencil. That was kind of my guide how I was going to step down. And sometimes I obey my borders and sometimes I don't. It all depends on how I feel that moment. So now I have them all the way around. I'm going to come back and draw that line out. And I like to right away echo and fill it in. The reason I do that is because sometimes I get lost in the pattern and I will skip something that I feel is important for me. So I want to make sure that I have that done, because I think if I went on, I might come back and not know exactly where I wanted to put that little shade in spot. This time I was really conscious of and made an effort to leave me a bigger space so that I had a little bit bigger space to draw that. And usually when I do a mono tangle, I will usually do 3, I try to fill it up as much as I can. So I'm going to put one more right in here just because I can. And sometimes I'll put 4 or 5. I will just as many as I can get in. This time I'm going to say I made a stroke, and this is what happens. You can see that I have a really large space here. I'm just going to go ahead and put one more so that it has 8 sections instead of 6, and fill it up, because I just wanted you to see it doesn't matter. I actually did that on purpose, but when I did it the first time, I didn't do it on purpose. I was just drawing. I wasn't focusing on the pattern. I was just focusing on each stroke. And a lot of times when you just focus on the stroke, you can get something that's a little bit you have an opportunity. Let's put it that way. And now we're just going to stroke, and I'm going to make sure I really step down again. And sometimes there's a little space that I'm going to leave, that little tiny space. I'm not going to put another stroke in there. I might come back and put a stroke in there, but right now I'm just going to leave it and see what happens. Because I have 8 instead of 6, they're just a little bit smaller. And this one I'm going to fill up all the way down and do a little aura over the top. Now, and I'm going to have to do it on that one because I just started filling it in. I wasn't concentrating on what I was doing. I was just exactly what I said. When you just are drawing for the pleasure of making the stroke, you figure out what you're going to do next. And so there we have our little starfish flower. And for me, I'm going to go in and make just some little orbs to set in here because I love orbs. When I did it on my brown, you can see I did little orbs, and I used a white jelly roll and added some white. And I love the fact that Nicole did her little, let's see if I can find a spot I want to put it. I'm going to put one right here. Just a half circle, and then aura it, and then fill it in. And you can leave just a little tiny bit of a sparkle. On this one, I went back and put a little white dot in. I left the sparkle, but I didn't like how it looked, and so I went back in and put just a little dot on top. But those are just kind of, they're fun to do, but I will probably put just orbs in most of this, just filling in between, because I love circles. I love them. I put them in everything. I think it's one of my trademarks. So when we go, we could keep adding. You could add different tangles here. You could add some more background. You might even try lava. That would be a fun one, or 1, 2, 3 in here. That would be a fun one to put in here. But let's take our pencil and do just a little bit of shading. And I'm just going to shade on one of these, just the center, with my graphite pencil, and then take my shading stump and blend it out. And I always use the side of your shading stump. You don't want to push on the point. You want to lay it on its side and just kind of pull that out. That's one way to shade this. Another way would be just to put a little bit. Usually I shade everything the same way on a drawing, but not always. I'm just going to put a little bit of graphite across the tops. I need to really sharpen this pencil. I think I had the same one last week and I didn't get my pencil sharpener out. And then I'm just going to pull them down. Don't pull it so that it completely grays out your art. You want to leave a little bit of white so that you have that contrast. So you can do, you know, so they come from the center here or from the outside edge. You know, you can even just draw one that comes on that original line of that starfish flower, and then just blend that out. And I like to have different ideas of how I'm going to shade it. I just like to use something different so that I have different ways. And even if they're all shaded differently, it still looks good. This one didn't get shaded yet. I would probably shade this one with a white pencil and then maybe go over it with a little graphite just to, or my terracotta. You know, this, because it has so much white in it already, this white kind of is fun, and I'm just going to do it from the center. And that one has 4 little blossoms in there. And that is, ooh, we are going slower today. I just looked at the time. That is starfish flower. Now we're going to go to starfish ribbon. And I was looking for I'm going to do it on a little bookmark. I'm going to come out because I think you can do this as a border, but since we have beginners, it might be easier to see it done on a linear. I did it so that it was, I just did a little spiral on here and did it in the round, on a round tile, but I'm just going to draw it on a bookmark just so we can move it along a little faster. And I'm going to start out with a pencil, and I'm just going to draw, and I drew mine, that's fairly dark. You know, Doug, can you see that? The pencil line? Okay, I just wondered, for me it's pretty light on I can see it well here, but it's really light on the drawing. So you just want a pencil line. That's going to give you something to draw on. So if you decided you wanted to do it on a tile and you wanted to do it like on a spiral, you could draw a spiral. If you were doing it on a tile, you could do a square a square string, so that it goes in a square. So now we're going to come back and we're going to just, I call them, just grow some little hairs out of this string. And I'm going to go about a 1/2 inch apart. No, they're not even equal distances apart. And they're not really even equal distances in height. They are just have all these little, like little grass or lines growing out. Then from right next to it, I'm going to do 2 more. So we end up with 3. There, that's a little bit better so you can see. So 3 little lines coming out. Definitely is a little like sprig of something growing. And when I first did this one, I didn't look at the step outs real close. And I didn't like how it looked. And so I went back and looked at her step outs and I thought, oh, you know, when you draw it right, it looks like her drawing. When you draw it wrong, they don't look, you know, different. It didn't look like what I wanted. So now we have all these little sprigs of grass. Now the same thing we did on starfish flower, except we're not going to come forward with our curve. We're going to go back the opposite direction. So it goes back and then down that line. So I'm going to go start at the top and come back down. So I get these fun little round little sprigs. And I guess because I had drawn starfish flower first, I thought that my little strokes needed to go forward, but it just didn't turn out very well. It didn't nestle in as well as what I had envisioned it doing. And I like to draw right down that line so it kind of thickens up that line a little on the inside. Now we have them drawn all along that edge. We're coming back to the very first one we drew, and I always draw from left to right, and that's because I am right-handed and I don't like to draw so that my ink can be a little damp sometimes, and it sometimes smears. Even though this ink dries very fast, it can smear. So I always do from left to right. And even when I do in a circle eye, that's how I go. So now we're going to come back to this first one, and we're going to do that same thing we did on starfish flower. And we're going to step it down until it comes almost to that pencil line that you drew. And this is where we're going to hollybaw, meaning we're going to pretend like we're drawing under. So this one can't go over those strokes. Move my hand so you can see. So we have to kind of pretend, and then it comes under. So it just goes under. We'll do that one again. So we start here, we stroke. As it gets to this one, it meets it. It's like it's going under. So it just looks like they're kind of laying on top of each other. And you can see that last one, I have to think, how much am I stepping down? So will it show? Is there room that it might show part of that little step down part? So I give it a little round part at that end. I just kind of guess about what I think it would. And sometimes I just pretend like I'm stroking. And it's usually only that last one that gets the little round part. And I just noticed I kind of overlapped some of my lines there, but I just went ahead and made it look like it was on purpose. Because I didn't the stroke was a little shaky as it came to the end. So I just made sure that it looked like I had just done that on that deliberately. And there we have, you can see that that's why it's called starfish ribbon. It's got quite the ribbon look to it. And you could come in here and draw an ink line underneath so that, you know, you have the line and maybe aura that, but, or you could even turn it and do the same thing going back this other direction. So you have a double one, which would be fun. It would be beautiful. So, there is, and I shaded this one. I just shaded this one just at the tip and drew those out. You know, just, and a lot of times if I have graphite on my shading stump, I don't need to add more, but I said you can also take a colored pencil, and I'm just going to add a little color here with, this is just a Prismacolor pencil. I'm going to actually even put it over that graphite and show you what you can. Then I'm going to take my odorless paint thinner, and I keep odorless paint thinner in a little jar with a sponge. That's so that I can kind of control it. So the sponge, it soaks up on that. You can see that the shading stump getting wet. And then I use that to blend out my odorless paint thinner. And if I do it too quickly, sometimes I don't let it dry and it will smear my my pen.
Can you use the odorless paint thinner to just blend out graphite? Or do you have to use it?
You don't need it to blend out the graphite. You can, because the graphite in itself is very slippery. So you don't need it to blend out the graphite. You can do, if you're just using graphite, you just blend it with your shading stump. You don't use odorless paint thinner. The only time I use odorless paint thinner is when I want the wax and the pigment in the pen, in the pencil to kind of melt. So I'm gonna do a little green here, and so you can see it just a little bit better. And we're gonna see if and what it does is it kind of shades it out so that you get a gradation of your pencils. So you have dark down here and then it gets lighter. It's just a fun way of coloring your Zentangle and getting some nice shading in there without having to be good at shading with your pencil. And it just blends it out. You can, and I love using the odorless paint thinner. So you can use hairspray. My sister said you could use hairspray, but and I have not tried it because I have odorless paint thinner, so I've never tried it. So now we're going to switch over, and I'm going to actually draw in on my template or in the book for my next tangle pattern. I'm going to adjust my camera so we have a little bit. And we're going to do a ruckus. Just because a ruckus is, I love, when Molly did a ruckus, it was enchanting to me. And since we have these lines coming out on the template, we're going to incorporate that into ruckus. They're just going to blend in. And I'm going to start by drawing right here in this edge. So if you were just doing it on a tile, you would just draw a circle. but I'm going to only do a part of one. So I'm only going to draw a part of a circle. So it almost looks like those little field of flowers, but I'm just going to draw part of that. And then I'm going to come out and I'm going to use those lines, and I'm going to draw straight out and then echo that line so that I have two. So it's kind of like a little straw, just a double line. And if you don't want to go over those lines, you don't need to, but I just go over them, and I like that little wobbly look.
How long should we make them on a tile?
If you're doing them on a tile, you could come all the way out to the edge of your tile, or you can just stop part way, because I'm going to show a little bit about, and then we're just going to spoke it around on your tile. That one was a little wide, but it will blend in. You want them to kind of be the same distance apart, the same distance, but the spokes, they don't have to be any, they can be, you can see mine are a little, they're not exactly even, but I'm also going to come here and I'm going to draw I just made a stroke in where I didn't really want it, but I'm just going to go over that because there's no mistake in Zentangle. That's going to, hopefully will just disappear. I love it when I make a mistake and I'm teaching a class and make an opportunity. We're going to call it an opportunity. So we have them all the way out. Now we're going to come back and aura the circle. So you can see that I aura this circle on the tile. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to aura the circle. So drawing all the way around. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to start another line, but it's going to start at that aura. So I'm not going to come back down to the first one. I'm going to come to the second one, and I'm going to draw a line out on either side of that second circle that I drew. And your lines can go all the way out to the edge, or they can stop. I like mine to stop on this particular page. And the reason is because I'll talk about it in a little bit. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to just aura out, and I'm purposely going to make them a little bit shorter than my first line. And I drag the palm of my hand along my, I'm going to open this up. So I'm going to drag my palm of my hand all along the paper as I draw. It helps stabilize my stroke. And I opened my book up so that it's flat, so that it's laying right against my paper, so I don't have an edge to draw on. Sometimes when you draw in a book, if you fold it back like this, and you have this, there's that edge of the book, your hand is, it's a little hard to draw. Some people find it easy, but I find it a little hard to draw if I'm doing a long piece. So now I've got my lines again. I am going to come back and aura my circle. So I do a line and then I aura my circle. And they don't have to be exactly the same width. They can be a little wider or narrower. And then we come back and we add our I'm going to call them like little bright rays of bright. Means that this template is bright. And I love this saying here, your future is as bright as your faith. That's one of my, I really feel like in times when we struggle in life, if we have faith that things will get better, we find we start living that way. So now I did my straight lines. Now I do my curved lines again. And I'm going to even come all the way over to this side. That one little line that I made a mistake, you guys don't even see it now. Well, maybe you do. I don't. I won't see it when I'm all done. And then we're going to draw our straight lines again.
I love having your book, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully it's inspiring to, you can, if you can't think of something, you can look in there and it's just got, I love inspirational sayings. So that's why I did it. Is because I'm a firm believer that when we think positive, that we can overcome all those. I'm sorry, we live in a very negative world. And I think we have to make the positive out of it. So I'm just going to show you what I do. Because I leave mine, I even have another little, kind of a little blooper. But I'm going to come back and I'm just going to put a little, I call it the head of a pin, a little fat dot on the ends of my lines going out. And I like it just kind of brightens it up. So I always go back and I put a little line, a little dot. Thank you. My husband's a little dot on the line. He's helping me get my words straight. And there we have it. When you do it on your circle or on a tile, you're going to come out much farther than you would on a little space if they're close together. So if I were to come out here and draw, and then I draw my other line. And you can see on the sample that Molly gave on the handout, how she used a spiral. I'm going to pull that handout down. She has a spiral. She's done a little striping. She's done it in an irregular instead of a circle. She did a diamond. Oh, here's the spiral. And this one is kind of fun to do. You have to think about it a little harder. As you spiral around, you start doing your lines out and then they meet. It's really a fun one to do. So I would put probably this same thing right down here, but I'm going to, and I have right in the corner, let's see if I can find oh, there it is. You can see on my bright template that I printed, there's a little bit more space and you can see how I pulled that out. This one, I did double lines instead of just a single line. I just did two and it just kept going just to change it a little bit. And then I colored my rings in brown and I could just keep going with my rings and it was fun. But our last one right here, this one is Nicole Dreyer's Starfish Double Barrel. And now when we do that, you're going to see how it's so similar to ruckus. A ruckus. And I'm going to I printed out a template and my printer needs some ink, so my lines are really light. But right down here in the corner, I have just a circle, and I'm just going to draw that circle in. So if you have a tile, just draw a circle anywhere on your tile. And the circle needs to be It can be any size, but I like it about the size of a large pea. So if we look at the size of my pen, you can see it's about the size of the tip of the micron pen, the metal part. And now I'm going to draw a fan blade out. And I'm going to go on the opposite side and draw another fan blade. Meaning that it just kind of gets a little wider, starts out narrow, and gets wide. And you can see I did 4, so that I purposely did them one on one side, then on the other, so that they could have some symmetrical look. And I would do the same on my tile. And then I'm going to go and draw one in between each of those blades. So you just want it to come out. I have a ceiling fan, a couple of ceiling fans, but the one in my, I think the one in my bedroom is blunt like this. I have some that have a little, I have one that has a little curve. I'll have to show you it. I'm going to draw, and I think you could do, you know, a little point if you wanted to. You know, you could make them have a little point, but this is, you know, how the original was. So I encourage you to, you know, step it up a game and try that. Now we've got all of these blades. We're going to come back to the center and we're going to draw another circle on the inside of all of those, just so it looks like it's hollybod underneath. I'll come in on my camera so that you got that other circle on there. Now I'm going to come back up to the top and I'm going to do a double fan blade, but this time I'm going to come so it comes back in on that circle so that it, and I have to rotate so that I am pulling my pen towards me. So I went all the way around and just doubled that little fan blade on each side. Now I'm going to come back and do another circle all the way around, and then another.
You're off camera.
Oh, thank you. My husband usually tells me when I get that way, and we just go all the way around. Because I came in close, it makes it easier for me to get off because I have to pull it down to the end of my art table. And we just keep adding circles. I'm going to add another one. I think I can get one more in there before I add my last. And I'm going to add those on both sides. When I do it on larger format, it's harder to teach. I didn't realize how much harder it was when I do it on a... It's okay if you're not having to stay under the camera, but when you have to stay under the camera, that's a little harder. So now I have it, the fan blade all the way filled in. And so that this one would blend with my other, with my bright, you can see I drew some little lines out. So I'm just going to, on this one that I just did, take a little line. And I just drew these little lines coming out from that center because I wanted it to kind of feel that same feeling of, you know, brilliance and bright and light. So I just came out from the center and I only put 2 in there, but you can see how I'm going to pull this one out. You can see how that, you know, kind of draws that all together. So did I go too fast on the last one? I guess not. I guess we're okay.
You're doing good.
Now this one, you know, when I shaded this, I thought let's see if I can find I'm going to use a cool gray. I thought I had one moment. I thought I had a terracotta pencil here so I could show you what happens when you use the brown, and I don't have a terracotta pencil. I use the color terracotta in the Prismacolor, and it goes wonderfully with the brown Micron 01. It is just a beautiful blend with that shading. But I'm just going to go ahead and use graphite so I can show Emily how you can. I'm just going to pick up one of my graphite pencils, and I'm going to come up here to this graphite one, and I'm just going to shade up here in the tops of those little fan blades. Can you see that? Let's come in so you can see. Graphite, one thing I want to warn you about, graphite really shines when you use it on, the camera light hits it. So you have to be kind of careful that if you don't want a real glossy, because it reflects the light, you have to be kind of careful. It doesn't look so bad when I look at it on my paper, but when I look at it on the camera, it just really has a lot of glisten to it. So I'm just going to put a little, and this is right over what in the book, what was originally there. And there was a little bit of shading, but I really like to shade that one from the top down and just give it just has, and you can, instead of using gold, I could have used silver jelly roll on this. And I'm just looking at that. That would have been really pretty. And I'm putting quite a bit of graphite here. And I'm using a 3B art pencil, but a 2B, regular 2B number 2 pencil works well. And if you get too much graphite build up on the end of your shading stump, it will get really, really slippery and doesn't blend as well. And so I will take my emery board and I clean off, I lay my shading stump on its side and just clean off that graphite, because graphite is a lubricant. And so that's why it builds up on there. And so I just clean that off so I don't get too much, especially when I put that much graphite on my paper. And then I'm just going to take it and I'm going to put some right in the center. I didn't even add any to the center. There was so much graphite still on my shading stump that I was just able to lift it. And I can sometimes even pick it up here and then pull it out onto, so pick it up here and pull it out here without even adding any more graphite. And that's one of the positive things about graphite, is that you can't do that with a colored pencil because it doesn't pick up, but you can with the graphite. So Emily, does that answer your question about that graphite and blending it?
Yeah.
Okay. I love it when young students ask questions. It's always great because they, don't be shy. Please don't be shy to ask a question. Okay, that is all for the class today. We're going to end the video, but we're not going to end the lesson. We're just going to end the video. And thank you for watching. And then we'll just chat if you have any questions. That's so that you don't have to feel like you're on being filmed.